G'day Coasters. 3 years ago, Bruce Smith and I were locked in a battle for Mayor of Westland. Things have changed a little bit in the last 3 years. I thought we'd turn the table and I thought I'd interview him for you guys.
Well, Andy, I remember that battle well. It was a good battle and it was too close for comfort for me.
Well, we've all moved on, Bruce, and you've been Mayor for 3 years. It's been interesting, to say the least. What have your biggest challenges been?
Well, in many ways, Andy, the big ones for me have been things that have happened from a government point of view. Things like the local government commission coming in and saying, well, look, we want to look to see whether we can merge all of the councils together. And that took up a lot of staff time, took up a lot of headspace. At the end of the day, it didn't actually result in a great deal, apart from a plan which is costing us $5.7 million to put in place. We've had the Auditor General's inquiry over the Hau Hau Wall at France, caused by complaints from 2 councillors. We've had various complaints to every government department you could probably think about, and pretty much all from the same 2 councillors. So that's been the biggest challenge for me.
Do you regret anything, though, that has brought those challenges or those questions about your leadership?
Well, there have been questions, and do I regret them? No. Look, I am what I am, and it's black and white. And when someone votes for something around the council table, and then 3 months later puts in a complaint to the Auditor General or whoever, it's not on, and that's what I'll be saying.
Were you surprised that your deputy mayor stood against you?
Yes, I were. I was. Oh, yes, I was. I was very surprised. You know, the reality is that Latham and I had breakfast together for every Monday morning for 18 months. In many ways, Councillor Havel and myself were mentoring him. And so the only confirmation that I had that he was sitting was 2 hours after the nominations had closed, when I saw it online. I have to say, I was shocked.
It's politics, though, Bruce.
It is politics, but Andy, if you were going to sit against me and we were having breakfast every Monday morning, you'd say to me a month before or 2 months before, Bruce, I'm going to sit against you.
What are the biggest challenges for Westland?
Well, at the moment, the biggest challenges are the myriad of changes in legislation that are flowing down, and they're all coming from central government. Because, and I have to say, and I've discussed it at mayors and chiefs meetings recently, my concern is for regional council, because the costs will firstly come to regional or to district council, and then we have to pass it on to the ratepayer, and we're going to be very unpopular, no doubt about it. And the value of the changes, I don't know yet.
I guess when it comes to those costs being passed on to ratepayers from central government, do you think that you're the right person to go back to central government and try and allay some of those changes? Well, I guess in negotiating with central government, it's very hard to negotiate once a decision's been made. Negotiating beforehand and being well connected is really important. I'm certainly not well connected when it comes to the issues with the Green Party. I'm not connected at all. Westland's a big area. Lots of changes have occurred recently. What are the biggest changes that you think?
Well, I think tourism's been fantastic. We've the TIF fund that was brought in by the national government, I believe, has been brilliant, because what it's done is it's allowed infrastructure to be rebuilt right across Westland. So that would be, for me, that would be the biggest thing that's occurred in every town in Westland.
Tourism has been very big. I guess one of the things that a lot of viewers of this will want to know about is and probably don't understand, because not a lot of people understand what CCOs are. When you became mayor, there was some quite big changes to the way the CCO group, as part of Westland Council, was structured. What do you think about that? Do you think it's been misunderstood?
Well, the CCOs are a political football, in particular. Formerly Westland District Properties, and now Destination Westland. And they're a political football because they look after our swimming pools, they look after our pension housing, They look after our road reserves.
But isn't that what council's for? Isn't that what the district council's supposed to do?
It's true, but historically, councils have been terrible at providing the level of service needed by the the pensioner houses. When the previous council transferred pensioner housing across to the property company, the independent report was staggeringly bad, and so it's a way of providing a service, improving the level of service to the end user.
Destination Westland, you mentioned that. Obviously, that was a big change. There's been some issues with that. Ute muster, wild foods, changes to personnel. Is that back on a footing now?
I believe it is. It's a part of the policy that I bring to council, that CCOs are extremely important, and it's simply because councils can't do it in a commercial way, as well as a private enterprise or a council-owned entity. And if you look at Wild Foods, the 30th anniversary went very, very well. Ute muster actually had a budget of a projected budget loss of 66,000 to develop the event. It came in at 75,000, and so it run over. The loss exceeded what had been budgeted for, but it's been a political football. I stand by it.
Will we see it again?
Oh, absolutely. Either run by a community group or run by Destination Westland, we'll definitely see it again. Absolutely gutted that it didn't occur this year, and as are the moteliers and the cafe owners who rang me about it, saying, what's going on?
30th Wild Food Festival, I went. I must say, I thought it was a success. I really enjoyed it. I thought the changes that were made were fantastic. Are we going to see something similar next year?
Very, very similar. In fact, the ticket sales have opened. It was a major success. There's no question that it was very well run, and it run within budget, and it was a big success. It's a big part of Westland's brand.
There's been a lot of questions, Bruce, about involvement with China. A couple of trips to China that yourself and Deputy Mayor Martin have made with other members of the community. A friendship agreement with Honung City.
Yep.
How's that working out? How is that good for Westland?
Okay, well, for the last 3 years, we've been negotiating with officials from Hong Kong, and at the Wild Foods Festival, the Deputy Mayor of Hong Kong City, Vice Mayor Chen, opened the festival. That opened the door, and that resulted in a friendship agreement being signed. There's been one trip. There have been 2 trips to China. I've only been once, and Andy, I loved it. I couldn't get over it. I just loved it. But it resulted in 20 students coming from Hong Kong Middle School to Westland District High School, and there are more to come. There are opportunities there to work together. I believe that if you're going to attract overseas investment, you've got to start at the bottom and build a relationship.
So this is positive for Westland. We're going to get more and more Chinese tourists coming through because of this, more and more students. So do you think that in the end that it's worth the investment?
Well, keep in mind the investment, I paid my own way, so did Jenny. The council paid for the return trip for the Hong Kong officials after Latham's first trip. So council's put very little into it. We paid our own way, and I did it because I didn't want to sit around the table arguing about whether someone should refund me $3,000. I'd much rather pay it myself.
One of the things that has come in during your time as mayor was inviting iwi around the council table and onto the committees. That's come in for some criticism. What's your thoughts on that?
It has come in for some criticism. In fact, and there were a couple around our table that were very uncomfortable with it. I believe that the Treaty of Waitangi is a partnership, and I believe that most of the people in New Zealand think the same thing. And on that basis, historically, we've gone to iwi to consult after we've made the decision. We don't do that now. They sit around the table. It's really smoothed up a lot of the resource consent issues that were stalling, and they've added real value, both Ngāti Waewae and Makawhio.
So on the issue of voting rights, what happens there?
At present, they have full voting rights at finance and audit, and they have no voting rights around council. I'll be advocating to go in our next annual plan to give them full voting rights, but to do that in consultation with our people first.
Yeah, so that has to be in communication or consultation with the local community on that.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
I guess one thing that has been interesting, and it's probably in very sharp relief at the moment, is the Sunset Point scenario. You and I both know that it was at a critical juncture about when you took over as mayor. There's been some questions about the way that Sunset Point has been saved. What do you say to people who question that?
Well, I guess in October of 2016, we went along and had a look at Sunset Point. It was 17 metres from breaking through into the river. There were stories about it being an old dump, and we confirmed that it was an old dump site. And so saving it was a no-brainer to me. Our council supported it completely. We did the rock work under emergency work, which cost around 180,000. And then we went through a process of getting community support to put hard fill in to build it up. So I make no apologies for Sunset Point. It's fantastic. It's got funding now available to build new toilets and car parks, and it's now 1.5 metres higher than it was before.
But the regional council has put stop to that work. You now have to apply for a retrospective consent. Should not that have been done earlier?
Well, they put a stop to where we've been putting hard fill outside of the area that was originally covered by the consent, and I agree with that. And so staff are going through retrospective resource consent. Could have been done better, but you know.
What about the erosion on Revel Street further north?
Well, I have views on that. Firstly, it's a regional council issue, but it's a Hokitika issue as well. Regional have just built a brilliant rock wall in behind the most affected area. There's rock on there the size of a mini car. It's very, very well done. I think we as a community in Hokitika need to turn around and say, are we here for the next 50 years or we're not? And if we're here, let's work with regional and let's get it protected. And carry on from the end of the beachfront all the way along.
Bruce, I'm going to ask you about Franz Joseph.
Yep.
I know your eyes are going to roll and glaze over because it is probably one of the biggest challenges Westland's facing in my mind. The Havel Wall obviously has been very controversial in the way that it was constructed, again without the consent, or you would argue done under emergency works. What do you feel is the future of Franz Joseph?
Well, Franz is drifting to the north. There was talk of building a new village, but the question is, the minute you raise the issue of who's going to pay for it, it just always goes silent. So it's drifting to the north. I think council has a responsibility to urgently get the zoning correct. The zoning's not correct there at the moment. People don't know what's industrial, what's commercial, what's residential, moving out to the north. So that's really important. The other issue is whether in fact government is going to come to the party in some form with buying out Southside. If they buy the south side out, then releasing the river to the south side is what will occur. If they don't, then those 82 people who live on the south side, the 5,000 cows, the 4 dairy farms, the 20 businesses, then they need security, and that means rock walls. There's nothing else. We also need to investigate whether in fact we can blow a hole in the Waiho Loop and straighten the river up. And it's something that's supported by many old fellas and not many young ones.
But is it supported by the science? Is that going to solve the problem?
Well, the science, we're informed that the science doesn't support it. But we're informed from the earth movers that we deal with that of course it'll work. And in fact it's worked. The river training work that Regional Council's done so far has already dropped the level of the river under the bridge.
We do know, though, that with the glacier retreating, that the river level is continuing to erode at quite a fast rate. Does that mean we're just going to have to keep topping up walls?
Well, under the river, under the bridge, of course, it's dropped, and where it's building up is down towards the Hau Hau Loop. We have a look at the lidar tests, the lidar results, and of course it's building up because we've got a dam. The river's dammed. It's got this loop across it, and while that remains, the river can only go right into the Tartary or left through the south side.
And that's the real question, isn't it?
That's it.
It's because from what I've seen, the science says really the south side has to be let go, which has got huge private property right implications.
Huge, and it's our only registered airport. There's a whole lot of services there. There's 80 odd people and probably half them work in town, so they're going to have to be relocated. It's a huge job.
Given the opportunity to do whatever you wanted to do, what would you do in Franz Joseph?
I think what I would do is I would get 35 or 40 million out of the tin from somewhere, pay the farmers out, release it to the south. That's what I'd do.
And that would take all the pressure off the north side. The river can go where it wants to go, and it's got free rein effectively.
It would go back to how the Gibbs farmed it 100 years ago.
The problem with that also, though, is the road needs to shift. So there's significant State Highway 1 change as well, isn't there?
Huge. It would have to go. It would have to go up through the berry farm. It would be. Well, they're talking 160 million, all up. And all I'm saying is, for years, every council has tried to come up with a solution, but without the money, there is no solution.
I want to stay in South Westland because it is such a beautiful part of our district. But with such low population, the costs down there are massive. We've got Haast, we've got Bruce Bay, those communities bearing the brunt of huge amount of tourist numbers, aren't they? But it's difficult for the Westland ratepayers to support them. What's your thoughts on the future of those communities?
Well, if you take Haast is actually growing. Haast has been the beneficiary of TIF fund applications. It's got new toilets. It's got cell phone reception. And most people were unaware that until a year ago, you couldn't use your cell phone in Haast. So the infrastructure in Haast is being upgraded. So Haast's future is really good. Bruce Bay, bit of a problem. Right by the sea. It's got new toilets, once again TIF funded, but right by the sea.
Beauty of that, though, it's State Highway 1, right? It's Transit's problem.
It is indeed. And Transit are down there at the moment. They're still doing the repairs after the last big event. It's a great for economic development because all the contractors are busy. So,
speaking of big events, climate change.
Yes.
It's impacting, whether you agree or not that it's human caused. I think it's pretty, or how much humans have caused it. I think it's pretty evident that our climate is changing. We're being impacted significantly on the West Coast. You refused to sign the Climate Change Emergency Declaration. Why was that?
It was brought out in 2015 and it was an agreement between the mayors. Now, there's no indication of cost in it, and on that basis, unless I know what I'm agreeing to, I'm not going to sign it. I completely agree that climate is changing, and my focus is on climate adaptation. I mean, if you're living by the sea, and the sea's rolling in your back door, you better shift because you're not going to be able to get insurance. You're not going to be able
whose job is it to protect those people or shift those people?
The landowner, in my view. It's not a council responsibility, and in many ways, it's not central government.
Well, it's regional council, really, isn't it? Not district.
It's regional. If it's by the sea or if it's by the river, regional council looks after rock protection. But there's a point where the dollars don't support, the type of move that the people that living there want.
So, what is the responsibility of the Western District Council to those people? Particularly if the Western District Council has given building consents to move to live in those areas.
My understanding is that legally, if you take the south side of the Hau Hau, there are provisions in the building consents that require bunds to be built and all sorts of things around the properties. Councils, if you're going to come to the coast, or if you're going to buy a property right by the sea, or right by a river, you need to look twice, because in your lifetime, it's going to give you grief.
Few areas closer north here. Kaniere. What's going on in Kaniere? Chinese Gardens, haven't seen them up yet. What's going on there?
Well, that's a community group running that. It appears to have ground to a halt. Having said that, Councillor Havel, who's been going to their meetings, says they're ready to take the next step. They've got new toilets at Dillmanstown, TIF funded. They've got an upgrade of the sports ground toilets, which has been fully funded. And so Kaniere is actually going really well. Lots of building consents. Town's looking pretty vibrant.
Cycle trails helping that out a lot.
Oh, it's been amazing. You know, look, when I hear people crying down the maintenance cost or the investment in cycle trails, I just blank out. It's just a wonderful investment.
Certainly brings a lot of people through our district. It is fantastic. Hokitika itself, a couple of issues in Hokitika. We touched on the Revel Street, the erosion potentially that's happening there. The Carnegie building has been a bit of it's been a bit of an issue, hasn't it?
It has, and look, it's had conflicting engineering reports. Right at the second, the building is now closed. Tenders have been called to strengthen it to 100%, and that money has been raised from Lotto and from Development West Coast. So ratepayer at this stage is not involved in the process.
Time frame on that?
Well, they're talking 18 months, which is a long time, but
it's a lot of work.
Apparently, yeah.
But it'll be a state-of-the-art building. We'll be able to access it again.
Absolutely, and it'll lead back into our Hokitika Museum.
I guess a piece of good news. It's been a wee while coming. The sports hub at the high school.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, when council made the decision to put $1.5 million from the MDI fund into the sports hub, there was a good decision, and that money came from Development West Coast, and it's been brilliant. And you've got the team leading it and driving it, Ange Keenan, Latham Martin. There's been some great community support there. Jackie Gurdon's actually done a brilliant job with it.
Bruce, big question.
Yep.
Rates are going up right across the country. With all the challenges you've outlined, can you, as Mayor of Westland, keep rates under control?
No. And look, the reason is that there are only a few ways that you can keep rates down. One of them is that when you've got capital rating, if we can get enough building growth in Westland, that offsets. So you get a $50 million project, or if you get a number of projects, that offsets the rates for every person that lives there. So there's a minor adjustment downwards for you. Income from your CCOs, that helps keep the pressure off. But the real problem is it's not the cost of administration of council. This council, like under the previous one, Andy, when you were there, 55 staff, still got 55 staff. That's not where the cost is. The problem is with these costs that come down from central government. You know, you say, look, we want clean water, and ideologically, there's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic, and these are the standards. And because of that, you've got to put new water facilities in Kaniere, Wataroa, Friends, Fox, and by the way, Mr. Ratepayer, you're covering the cost. That's the issue that we can't control. We just simply can't control it.
So these costs are being imposed on us from Wellington,
Yes,
but don't the citizens have the right to make sure that their water's clean?
Yes, they do. Absolutely. And
So how do you marry those two conflicting requirements?
it's a real challenge. It's a real challenge because every year we go out and we say, oh, you've got another 5% rate increase or 3% or whatever it is. And if you wanted to break it down, you could actually look at every one of those costs that came from central government. If you took them off, the rate increase would be very, very small.
Recently, there's been a bit of noise on Facebook and a few other places. You've been having a go at the Greens. With the current government, central government, current prevailing ideology, is that wise?
Well, I don't think as a community, coasters can stand by and be hammered time and time again, all driven by the Green Party, and it's 6% of the population. It's simply not fair. We're struggling with stewardship land. We're struggling with no mining on conservation land. We're struggling with changes to whitebait regulations, where they don't even know whether there's been a reduction in whitebait. We're struggling with the fact that Three Rivers might be closed. We're struggling with a whole myriad of things that are all ideologically driven, and on that basis, as mayor, if you want someone who's going to roll over and the Greens can tickle my tummy, it's not going to happen. We have to fight as a community for the rights that we've traditionally had for 150 years.
But that carries a risk, Bruce. I think people will agree with what you're saying, but you have to take people with you. You have to take central government with you. By effectively declaring war on the Greens and their ideology, does that mean Westland could be left behind?
No, I don't think. I think Westland is driven by private investment. It's not driven by government. It's like our council. We have revenues of 18 million. We're a pimple on the size of the Westland economy, and central government can impose costs, but it can't stop.
Speaking of the economy, how's Westland economy going? Are we in for a bit of a downturn?
I believe so. I believe that tourism has peaked temporarily. I believe the world markets are now so fragile that a major downturn could easily occur. Having said that, Westland house prices are the best they've ever been. You put a house on the market, generally it's sold within a week. Our unemployment rate is now under 2%. Our GDP's rising. All of the statistics that make up Westland put it in a better position than the Grey District or the Buller District, which is the one that's struggling the most.
Nuts and bolts, council's debt position, where are we at?
We're in the July report that came to council. Debt is 14.3 million net debt. So that's a debt less the cash that you've got. Cash on hand 4.3 million, and undrawn facilities 5.4 million. So from a cash point of view, we're in a very, very strong position. Our interest rate, we're now down to borrowing at 2.75%, and we were admitted to the centralised funding agency that councils use on the basis of the strength of our balance sheet.
That's the debt position as on 31st of July. What about projected going forward?
If in our long-term plan, projected at 24 million by the 30th of June 2020. Having said that, we were projected at 21 million for the 30th of June this year, and we're 18.1, 18.2.
But a figure of 24 million, is that sustainable for a small ratepayer base like Westland?
It's well below the limits that the previous council and the council before that set, and our limits are around about 70 million. That's the maximum that the council could sustain. From a prudent point of view, 30 million.
Bruce, if you're re-elected,
Yep.
what can the ratepayers expect? Less controversy?
I will be speaking for the coast. I love the coast. Born in Greymouth, schooled in Westport, and spent the last 40-something, 50 years in Hokitika. I'm a coaster. I'll be speaking for the coast. If I don't like it, I'll be saying I don't like it. I'll be doing my best to ensure that ratepayers are communicated with, and I don't think there's a mayor on the coast that communicates to the level that I do, sometimes at my disadvantage, but I'm looking forward to the loyalty that coasters are known for, and I'm confident that they will vote they'll vote for experience, and they'll vote for someone who's got a bit of common sense.
You don't know the makeup of the next council. Would you expect it to be as fractured?
Well,
what would you change?
What fractured the first council was that first period of time when the SFO got involved and there was a change in chief executive, and that split the councillors. There's no question about that. Would I change that? No, because going forward we wouldn't have been able to do what we've done. I've looked at the quality of some of the candidates sitting. It's as good as I've ever seen. Some of them, I'm excited about a number of them. So I'll be doing my best to have a team system. I'm going to do away, if elected, I'm going to do away with the portfolio system. Actually didn't work. I'm going to go back to committees, which the previous council had, because that appears to work a whole lot better. And it takes the mayor out of that invidious position of being seen to be controlling everything, and place the control back within the council committees.
Bruce, this is your statement. What do you want to say to the ratepayers of the West Coast? Westland.
Well, pretty straightforward. You've seen what I can do. You've seen the growth. You've seen the excitement, that the changes in Westland. I think you need to consider that voting for experience and common sense is worth a tick. And thank you very much, Andy, for doing this interview. I really do.
Welcome, Bruce. Enjoyed it. Look forward to October the 12th.